Hi, I'm Megan Spurline, news editor at The Vidette, the student voice of Illinois State University, and a reporter for WGLT. Welcome to Democracy's Future, a joint project between The Vidette and WGLT News. We hear from the students who will help chart the future of our democracy. On this episode of Democracy's Future, we begin with Chloe Yost, a sophomore history education major from the Chicago suburb of Manhattan, Illinois. Yost is a member of Campus Ministries and ISU's Emerging Leaders program, and as a person of color, she says her conservative beliefs often take people by surprise. In this conversation, Yost says that she believes extreme polarization in U.S. politics is putting democracy at risk.
I would say it's definitely getting there. I mean, we saw it in 2020. I couldn't vote in 2020. I wasn't 18 yet, but I definitely saw it. If you like Trump, you're this type of person. If you like Biden, you're that kind of person. I'm like, why can't y'all just sit and talk? I didn't have a side yet because I'm 17. I don't care about politics yet. Why do we have to have this idea that because you like this candidate that you're all of a sudden this type of person? Like, no, why can't two of you sit down, have a conversation, and be like, this is why I like Trump, or this is why I like Biden? Because you're not going anywhere saying, if you like Trump, you're this type of person, or if you like Biden, you're this type of person. You're not getting anywhere. You're not changing anybody's mind. You're actually creating more resentment on the other side, whatever that other side is. I definitely could see it getting worse, and that does scare me a little bit.
Yeah, so you mentioned that in the 2020 election you weren't old enough to vote, and that you just weren't really into politics in general. Do you plan on voting this upcoming election, and is there anything in particular that kind of got you into politics?
I do plan on voting, but I would say what really got me into politics was the fact that I did see this giant divide happening, and I was like, I don't like that. I don't like this huge divide that we have in this country. And I thought maybe if I can have a conversation and maybe break some of the quote unquote stereotypes you might have about somebody, then maybe we can help create the break that's happening, or the divide. We can make it closer.
Yeah. So then, with the upcoming election, or in general, are there any particular issues in the United States that you feel concerned about?
There's a few. One thing that I have a problem with is when it comes to the education system. I feel like parents' rights are being stripped away, and that's not okay with me. Because parents do have a right to know what's going on in the schools, what's going on with their child. You may not always agree with what a parent doesn't want their child to see or read or whatever, but unfortunately that is a parent's decision. Some of it goes in religiously. Like, I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter growing up. Kids were reading Harry Potter. My mom said no. I picked up my first Harry Potter book in 8th grade. So for me, I want parents to have the rights in the public school system, because what I'm seeing is schools are doing things behind parents' backs. That's something that is because I do have a little sister, and the fact that thinking that a school might be hiding something from my parents is but yeah.
Were there any other particular issues you felt passionate about that you want to talk about?
This might ruffle some feathers. I am incredibly pro-life. I believe that abortion is murder, the murder of an innocent child. So yeah, if you have any follow-up questions.
Do you feel like that stemmed from also with your religion? I know that's kind of, I don't want to tie the two together, but I know they often do go hand in hand.
They do go together. I believe that child was created by God, and that nobody has the right to play God, basically, so you don't get to decide whether somebody lives or dies. I'm also very against the death penalty, because that's normally another question that pops up when I say that. Are you against the death penalty? I am. I don't believe anybody has a right to decide whether somebody lives or dies, unless you are God himself, which nobody here is. So, and I know like people on death row they've done horrible things, but it's just the conscience of, I don't believe anybody should say you deserve to die or you deserve to live.
Do you feel that there's any exceptions?
So when it comes to rape, I understand that woman is nowhere at fault. Nowhere am I blaming the woman. Like, I know she didn't ask to be in that situation. Nothing. I'm not blaming the woman at all. But at the same time, I'm with punish the rapist, not the child. Do not punish the child for the actions of the father. And I think supporting that woman emotionally and getting her to a pregnancy resource center, because there's a lot of those, and depending on the research, the pregnancy center will get you different things. Some of them will give you like free baby food, free clothes. Some of them will give you free ultrasounds. It depends on the pregnancy center that does different things. And I just believe in helping her emotionally, because the reality in here is that an abortion does not unrape her.
You know, the topic of abortion, especially with, Roe v. Wade being overturned, is going to be pretty big in the upcoming election. So I'm just wondering if, your stance on abortion is going to kind of, not control, but, kind of change the way that you're voting, who you're voting for, things like that.
Oh, yeah. I understand I may not get a candidate who's completely pro-life, but I could maybe if it's like, because I'm not sure where Joe Biden completely stands, but I know he's for abortion like all the way, and I've never been the biggest fan of Joe Biden, I'll be honest with you. So, and then it depends on, let's see, in the GOP we're between Trump and Haley, so and I'm gonna be honest, I wish all the candidates were different. Like, I wish we didn't have Joe Biden in the Democratic circle or Trump in the Republican circle. But or Nikki Haley. I'm gonna be honest, it's like not the best candidates for me, completely on either side. And so, but it's like but that definitely would influence who I would vote for.
Yeah, talking along those lines, are there any particular candidates that you are interested, that you feel positively about, or I guess just passionate about in general, pro or con?
The one I was really interested in dropped out of the election. I was really interested in Vivek Ramaswamy. I just thought, oh, he's young. He's young. He definitely spoke his mind, and he definitely had my interest. And then he dropped out, and I was so sad. I'm not the biggest fan of Nikki Haley. Just some of the things she said, like something about raising the retirement age to 70. No, thank you. No, thank you.
You mentioned that oftentimes, like Republicans, like all political parties, there's certain stereotypes and assumptions about them. Do you feel like the stereotypes and assumptions related to being like a Republican or like a conservative, like make it tough for you to feel like you can express your beliefs?
Yes, it does. One thing that, and for me, people get shocked when I say I'm a conservative, because they're like, I've actually been told this, oh, you're black and you're conservative? I'm like, what the heck? Right? Like, because to me, my skin color doesn't mean anything. Like, it's just, I got some melanin. That's it. And it doesn't say anything about me. Obviously, there are a few things that you can probably look at me and assume I would believe, like black people should have rights. I believe that. But at the same time, it's like, when I'm asked, how can you be black and conservative? It's like, well, conservatives typically support the Second Amendment. I support the Second Amendment. Conservatives are usually anti-abortion. I'm anti-abortion. And now when it comes, and then people usually bring up Black Lives Matter. I agree with the statement, but the execution was not okay with me, because like I said, they were raiding buildings and they were rioting. That's not okay with me. I can agree with that statement all day. But you wouldn't see me at one of those rallies because I didn't agree with how they were projecting it. And also it's just, I would love to see people just not looking at my skin color, because when the first thing you're asked is, how are you black and conservative? It's like, why are you looking at my skin color in the first place? Obviously, people are always going to see my skin color. That's reality. But when people act like it's my personality or it's my deciding factor for things, that's annoying, right? Like, it's just, I was born with some darker skin. Doesn't say my faith. Doesn't say where I stand anywhere, what I'm good at, nothing. So it does make it harder because I'll get that shocked face, but I'll just show them why I stand where I stand.
Chloe Yost says she plans on being a high school history teacher after graduating. You're listening to Democracy's Future. Next on Democracy's Future, you'll hear from a graduate student who was Republican when he first started college, but his views underwent a radical transformation. Stephen Lazaroff is a fourth-year PhD student in the English department at ISU and a native of Orland Park. Lazaroff is active in the ISU Grad Workers Union and an advisor for Club Create. In this conversation, Lazaroff reflects on his political journey, explaining how his once conservative views slowly shifted into something different: socialism and abolitionism.
In terms of the contemporary abolitionist movement that I consider myself to be a part of, it comes out of the kind of original abolitionist movement that we think about in the 19th century, fighting to end chattel slavery. However, it continues, right? So it comes out of a field of analysis flowing out of W.E.B. Du Bois that said slavery continued under another name after Reconstruction. So these group of theorists that I join in abolition believe that the problem of slavery still exists for us, and it embodies itself in like white supremacy, the police murder of black folks that continues, and so abolition today moves further than just saying, well, let's abolish chattel slavery, right? Or let's abolish the prisons, or let's abolish the police. It says we need a whole new world, because this stuff goes that deep.
With the upcoming election, and I guess just like the government in general, are there any particular issues that you're concerned about right now, and why?
The main issue for me as somebody on like not committed to Democratic Party politics as the end all be all, but I'm on the left, right? I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, I'm a Marxist, depends on whatever the moment, the context demands. But abolitionist first and foremost. My issue is I want people to start getting politically active, and not just once every 4 years or once every 2 years. So, I mean, that's the main issue for me. I want people to care about fighting fascism, not just every 2 years or 4 years, but to see the connections between the fascism of Trump and, it is difficult to say, but the fascism of Biden. Look at the amount of prisoners we have in this country. That is an everyday fascism. And I mean, this is stuff that people talk about. Alberto Toscano writes about this. And The Long Shadow of Racial Fascism in the Boston Review. Like, these are the roots of our country, and it goes so deep. So the main issue for me is for people to think about politics as something that they do. And that's why grassroots organizing is so powerful, right? Going door to door and talking to people face to face. But we face big problems. We face the climate crisis. We face houselessness, right? Homelessness. We face a reproductive justice major problem where abortion is illegal again. So we face these massive issues, white supremacy, and we need big responses to those big problems. So my big issue is, yes, people should vote. And I mean, it's such a tough conundrum with Biden, Trump. I'm probably in the minority on that because I'm on the left and I'm a Marxist. But like for me, the two of them are not as different. There are a lot of issues with everyday American life that we don't interrogate because they're just so natural. We take them for granted.
Yeah. So you mentioned, being on the left, but, like not exactly fitting into like the exact like ideals of like a Democrat. So are there any candidates that you are particularly interested in, either like pro or con with the upcoming election?
Do you mean in terms of voting for them?
Yeah.
No, I can't say there's somebody I'm excited to vote for. There's people that I will vote for, but I can't say that I'm particularly excited. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen an exciting candidate in a while, in terms of somebody that I could actually vote on. Even when I lived in Chicago, I could vote on the alderperson, and a socialist was running for alderperson there, Daniel Espada, and he won. So that was exciting to me, because I want to see people in office that actually represent viewpoints that I agree with. And I think, there's a phrase that I learned from some old revolutionaries, which is kind of a cliche among some socialists, but they say the Democratic Party is a graveyard for social movements. Like, they go there to die. And I know that our movements can't die. We need them to continue. We need them to continue outside of just politics and the hundreds of millions of people that live in this country.
How much were you taught about democracy in schools or even here at ISU? What were your takeaways?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, I guess I feel like I learned the common sense of, U.S. democracy throughout my entire childhood, right? Like, that's how I became the person that I was politically. Because when I came up in the world, I was the complete opposite as I am now. I was a conservative. I was a member of the college Republicans when I was at Miami University 17 years ago. And so people's ideas change.
Like, what caused the change in your political views? Like, what was the process of, making that change?
Yeah, so the transformation politically really began when I went to Miami University and I transferred in there. I'd gone to community college for 2 years before that, and I transferred in, and I was about to change majors from finance to philosophy, and I was taking a course with a professor, and she was really supporting me intellectually, but also emotionally, because I was having a really hard time adjusting to being away. My mom had just been diagnosed with cancer. My sister was very ill at the time, and I also felt inferior in my classes because I hadn't engaged philosophical texts in the same way, so I entered those classrooms and I felt really badly about myself. But anyways, so we had this connection, and over this months we built it, and then this one day, this was in southern Ohio, right? So it's by Cincinnati, and I saw a sign for a referendum, supporting gay marriage, and at the time, I mean, I wasn't a bigot, but I definitely had bigoted beliefs, right? Mainly just because I was uncomfortable and I didn't know how to deal with it. So what happened was I became very uncomfortable when I saw that, and I then became uncomfortable with my discomfort. I remember where I was. I was walking down High Street, about to turn onto Talawanda Avenue, and I stopped at the corner, and I was horrified by my discomfort and by my judgment, or my movement towards judgment. And I was like, what would you be judging even, right? But it was a different time back in the mid 2000s. There was a lot more anti-queer and anti-gay hostility. I mean, a lot of states passed anti-gay marriage referendums in 2004, I believe. So it was a different time. But so I remember standing there and saying, how can you feel this way about this person, right? And then later on, the belief came, which is, I think, the true one, which is that they don't need to be, no one needs to be a good person to live their life how they want to live their life. But at first, what first struck me was, how can I feel this way about this person's choice and how they want to live their life, if it was true even? And from there, that kind of opened up other stuff, like a friend read some Chomsky to me, and so he critiqued my stances on U.S. imperialism, and so that chipped away a little bit. But It took a while. I think the process really was completed, or not completed. The process was accelerated with the Occupy movement, when I was actually able to put my politics into action and to live those politics and to get a real sense of democracy.
So what were your Republican beliefs up to that point?
Definitely, it was market-based. It was very, very economic. There were moral issues in there, like gay marriage, which was cast as a morality issue at the time. And let's see. So free market stuff, definitely. I supported the Iraq War very vigorously at the time. I can remember debating the surge. There was this surge that was being debated if the number of troops should be increased. And so I supported the Iraq War. That was a big one.
Who was the last Republican that you voted for?
It hurts my mouth to say it, but George W. Bush.
I don't know if you have like an exact timeline in your head, but like when do you think you like really made the switch where you stopped voting Republican and you really realized like how much your views had changed?
It definitely was with the Occupy movement, Occupy Wall Street in 2011, because it called on me to act on my beliefs for once. And that's something that I had always felt a distance from, the ability to act on them, because there really wasn't much in the way of political organizing at that time. And so when that happened, I mean, that was really truly a moment of radicalization for me, because I was in Chicago at the time, and we had moved from Jackson and LaSalle across from the Fed over to Congress in Michigan, and we were sitting there, and people were putting up tents, and people were going to stay there as long as they could. So they were going to take trespassing arrests. And so the question was put to me. I mean, I put the question to myself: am I going to get arrested for the first time? Is this? And I stayed. I remember the moment when they put the zip ties on, because they give you a chance to leave. They're like, do you want to sit here and trespass? And I said yes. And they put the zip ties on and took us all away, hundreds of us. And but it was a very radicalizing experience, being in jail for just 12 hours. They put 20 of us together in a cell, and we just talked for 6 hours, 7 hours. And so putting my beliefs into action really changed things.
Stephen Lazaroff says he wants to continue to learn, write, and teach others as a professor in the future. Next time on Democracy's Future, you'll hear from the political parties on the ISU campus, how they are thinking about and preparing for the 2024 election. Our thanks to audio producer Ariel Jones, WGLT Digital Content Director Ryan Denham, and WGLT News Director Eric Stock. Please give us your feedback on this series, and let us know if there are certain issues you'd like us to explore. Email us at news@wglt.org. Subscribe to Democracy's Future on the NPR app or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Megan Spurline.